Most people think they know their habits. But some of the things you do every day might not be habits at all. They might be psychological patterns. Patterns you've repeated for so long that they've started to feel normal. Maybe you replay conversations for hours. Maybe you prepare explanations nobody asked for. Maybe you struggle to enjoy things you're excited about. And maybe you've never stopped to ask why. The interesting part: many of these habits aren't random. They're often your brain trying to protect you. And by the end of this video, you might recognize yourself in at least one of them. Let's start with something surprisingly common. Have you ever left a conversation and then spent the next few hours replaying it in your head? Maybe you're wondering, did I say something wrong? Did I sound weird? Did I upset them? Most people call this overthinking. But here's where things get interesting. Sometimes your brain isn't trying to understand the conversation. It's trying to prevent something. Replaying conversations can be your brain's way of searching for danger. Not physical danger. Social danger. Rejection. Embarrassment. Judgment. If social mistakes felt costly at some point in your life, your brain may have learned to scan conversations for signs that something went wrong. The problem is that certainty rarely comes. So the replay continues. And sometimes the conversation becomes more important in your mind than it ever was in reality. But that's not the only surprising habit people develop. Do you ever find yourself explaining things in your head, even when nobody asked? Maybe you're defending a decision, explaining your choices, preparing responses to conversations that haven't happened. If so, you're not alone. Most people assume they're simply thinking ahead. But sometimes something else is happening. Your brain may be preparing for judgment. Think about it. If you've experienced being misunderstood, criticized, or judged before people understood your intentions, your brain may start preparing defenses automatically. Not because danger is present, because it expects it might be. And over time, these imaginary explanations can become so automatic that you stop noticing them. But wait until you hear the next one. Because many people don't even realize they're doing it. Some people will spend hours helping a friend, listening, supporting, showing up. But the moment someone offers help back, they feel uncomfortable. Why? Because giving and receiving aren't psychologically identical. When you're helping someone, you're often in control. You choose what to give. You decide how much to share. But receiving requires something different. Trust. Openness. Vulnerability. And for some people, vulnerability feels much harder than generosity. Which leads to a surprising pattern. They become the person everyone can lean on, while struggling to lean on anyone else. And speaking of vulnerability, the next habit might explain something you've experienced after opening up. Imagine sharing something deeply personal. At first it feels good, relieving, authentic. Then a few hours later, your brain starts asking questions. Why did I say that? Did I share too much? What do they think of me now? If this sounds familiar, psychologists sometimes refer to it as a vulnerability hangover. Not because vulnerability is bad, but because vulnerability creates uncertainty. You no longer control what someone thinks. You no longer know exactly how you're being perceived. And for some people, that uncertainty feels incredibly uncomfortable. The important thing to remember is this: feeling exposed doesn't automatically mean you made a mistake. Sometimes it means you did something brave. But there's another habit that's even harder to recognize. Have you ever looked forward to something while simultaneously preparing for it to go wrong? Maybe it's a trip, an event, good news, a relationship. Part of you feels excited. Another part feels nervous. Why? Because anticipation doesn't always create excitement. Sometimes it creates pressure. And for some people, hope and protection become intertwined. They start preparing for disappointment before anything has even happened. Not because they're negative, but because they're trying to avoid getting hurt. The problem is, protecting yourself from future disappointment can sometimes stop you from enjoying the present moment. And that brings us to one of the most misunderstood habits of all. Here's a strange question. Have you ever felt more lonely around certain people than when you were completely alone? At first, that doesn't make much sense. After all, loneliness is supposed to come from being alone, right? Not necessarily. Because loneliness isn't always the absence of people. Sometimes it's the absence of connection. Think about it. You can sit in a room full of people and still feel unseen, unheard, misunderstood, disconnected. And sometimes that's more painful than being by yourself. Because when you're alone, at least your loneliness makes sense. But when you're surrounded by people and still feel lonely, it creates a different question. Why don't I feel connected? The answer isn't always that something is wrong with you. Sometimes it's that the environment isn't meeting your emotional needs. Sometimes you're present, but not understood. Included, but not connected. And recognizing that difference can change how you see loneliness entirely. But the final habit might be the one people recognize the most. And it's often happening so quietly that they don't even realize it. Have you ever won an argument? That never happened. Maybe you're driving, showering, trying to sleep, and suddenly you're having a conversation in your head. Someone criticizes you. You defend yourself. They argue back. You explain again. Except, none of it is real. The conversation only exists in your imagination. Why does this happen? Because your brain isn't always preparing for reality. Sometimes it's preparing for possibility. If you've experienced criticism, judgment, or misunderstanding before, your brain may start rehearsing future situations in advance. The goal is usually protection. But protection can become exhausting. Because eventually you aren't just responding to real problems. You're responding to imagined ones too. And before you know it, your mind is spending energy solving situations that don't exist. The interesting part is, most of these habits have something in common. They usually start as protection. Your brain learns something, adapts, creates a strategy, and then keeps using that strategy long after the original situation is gone. Which means many of the things you criticize yourself for might actually be attempts to keep yourself safe. If you recognize yourself in one or more of these habits, you're definitely not alone. The goal of understanding these patterns isn't to judge yourself. It's to become curious about yourself. Because awareness is often the first step toward change. And sometimes simply realizing, wait, there's a reason I do that, can be incredibly freeing. So tell me in the comments, which of these habits do you relate to most? 1. Replaying conversations. 2. Imaginary explanations. 3. Giving more than receiving. 4. Vulnerability hangovers. 5. Expecting disappointment. 6. Feeling lonely around people. 7. Imaginary arguments. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe because next week we're exploring 7 signs anxiety is showing up in ways you don't expect. You might be surprised how many people miss them.